Bryan Munson of Big Red Report at BigRedReport.com. I guess I could see why, at least initially, and this may change throughout the season, why Nebraska continues to offer D tackles. They're looking for somebody, as you mentioned last week, that could be that Ndamukong Suh, who can be that run stopper and also get pressure on the quarterback.
That's absolutely right. I mean, if there was an area, it's been the defensive line, since Suh left, really, where you were looking for a guy to be dominant in that one-on-one matchup. You want a guy to be able to create things and make things happen there. I think Nebraska, showed some things there. I think also they've got a lot in their back pocket. I firmly believe that what you saw on the offensive side of the football as well as on the defensive side of the football was very vanilla. And I think that there will be a lot more packages put in, a lot more stunts that have been put in under Kaczynski, under Coach Pelini on the defensive side of the football. I did like the blitz that they used for Will that one time that kind of cleared a path to the quarterback. I liked what P.J. Smith did as a blitzing defensive back. I got to believe there's more of those to come, guys, and I think that those will be, slowly you'll see them come out week by week.
All right, let's get to the recruiting end of this. A couple prospects were here, both who have previously pledged to other schools. How did the visits go?
I thought they went really well, guys. I mean, from talking to Corey Clement yesterday, he seemed to enjoy the visit the most in talking to him, but hated the trip to Nebraska the most as well. Corey Clement, has been compared to, not only by myself now, but also by the Nebraska staff, who told him on Saturday and Sunday that they really thought he was that complete running back, like what Rex Burkhead is. They really feel like he's a guy that could never have to come off the football field because he can run the football, he can catch the football, he can pass block, he can do everything. Clement can really see himself in Lincoln, but I really believe that the distance is a huge issue to him, which I kind of also see and find interesting as well, because Wisconsin isn't exactly close to New Jersey, and neither is Notre Dame. So I'm interested to see how he's going to kind of get around this. I don't know if it's going to be one of those things that's going to just push him over the top to let him remain committed to Pitt. But I felt like Clement liked his visit the most to Nebraska out of the two. The other guy, Kyle Shortridge, I spoke to yesterday afternoon as well. It's not to say Kyle didn't think he had a good visit. I mean, he rated it a 10. But you have to consider what that 10 actually means. He's only been on an unofficial visit before to Wake Forest, and on that unofficial visit to Wake Forest, he actually committed. It was when he got back to Florida that his coach and his parents said, hey, let's slow down. Let's go ahead and get some things, out there to where we can consider other schools. And he's going to Wake Forest this weekend, so I'm interested to see, what he's going to say about the visit to Wake Forest and then to Nebraska and how they contrast.
What about positions of need? As I see them, and you may disagree, offensive tackle, a huge position of need. Tight end with Ben Cotton and Kyler Reed both graduating this year. And maybe safety. They've recruited the linebacker position hard. Defensive ends, maybe always a position of need as well. Where do you see the positions that they really need to get better at?
Well, I think you definitely nailed them. Offensive tackle is huge. I think other than maybe like Sterup and Gibbons Price, who I think at the time they were both recruited were kind of projects that, figure in to play that offensive tackle. They've really missed out on offensive tackles the last two seasons when it comes to recruiting, and I think it's something that they have to go ahead and get nailed down and get a guy this year. Tight end is definitely an issue given the people that are leaving. They've got Greg Hart already in the fold. They were obviously looking for a junior college help there. They got Bo Sandlin pegged. Sandlin, just talked to him on Sunday. He heard about Nebraska's effort to throw the football. I think he's becoming more and more enamored with OU, though, with Oklahoma. And that, to me, is a little bit concerning because OU does have a tradition in recent history of turning out some pretty good tight ends. Gresham, James Hanna. I mean, they can turn out some tight ends, and they feature them. But I think you'll see that the tight end is going to be used more consistently from this offense this year, not only to get that point across, but I think it's also just a point that was lost in emphasis last year by the Nebraska offense. I think also then defensive back is big. I think they do need to try to find one good cover corner. I think they've got that in Jonathan Cook. Liked watching him yesterday, but then at safety, you got Marcus McWilson, and you got a guy like Nathan Jerry, who I think, to me, he may be actually the hidden jewel of the class right now, guys, because I've got some stats on Nathan Jerry from what he's done so far the first 2 weeks of the season, and it's pretty special.
Yeah, indeed. I would, you know me, I'm keeping track of that Nathan Gary up there in Sioux Falls, South Dakota for Washington High School. They always have big games at the beginning of the year there, by the way. So his competition is legit. I'll just confirm that for you. That's my contribution to this discussion.
Oh, thanks.
You're welcome. Bryan Munson from Big Red Report Magazine, BigRedReport.com, joining us on the House of Speed hotline here on Gaskins and Stevens, 93.7 The Ticket and theticketfm.com. We saw Colton Steer out of Crete go for, what was it, 225 yards, Tom?
5 TDs.
Whew. By the way, is he going to be a scholarship guy or is he going to be a walk-on? Likely a walk-on?
Probably a walk-on.
Yeah.
I'd say likely a walk-on, guys. I don't know what's going to have to turn the heads. What's going to have to happen this season to turn the heads of Nebraska to get back looking at the in-state players. I think there's going to be a constant evaluation, and there typically is. But I think it's probably a walk-on situation there.
Okay. Any other huge performances, spellbinding performances from Huskers to be?
I watched Jonathan Cook yesterday, and I really like his on-the-field recognition. He's almost overly physical for a cornerback. He got burned that one time with an inside release on the wide receiver. He was doing an outside technique, and he got burned up the field. But, up to that point, I think yesterday, he probably had, 7, 8, 9 tackles and took one kid's helmet off by hitting him coming down the field on punt return coverage. Banderas is solid, especially, running the football. The guy is tremendous. I think he's averaging 10 yards a carry, guys. It's like 32 carries for like 329 yards. Getting back to Nathan Gehrig a little bit more, he hasn't, I don't think they're really testing him too much in the secondary, the opposing teams anyway. He only has like 6 tackles and 1 pass deflection, but this is a guy that's doing stuff in every area of the game. Just to give you guys an example, he has 4 receptions for 58 yards and 1 touchdown. He's also had a couple carries that didn't really amount to much, but this guy's also punting for his team. He has 5 punts for 208 yards. He's averaging over 40 yards a punt for his Washington High School team, which I thought was kind of interesting. Greg Hart had a big week last week. He caught a touchdown pass. A.J. Nader, we talked to him. He had mentioned that just not a lot of teams are running at him, so it's tough for him to get his tackles up, but he does have 3 sacks. And, of course, Johnny Stanton, you go back and you start talking about statistics, you're going to start talking about the quarterback. He's leading the number 1 team, Santa Margarita. They've won the last 2 weeks, and he's now 22 for 41 with 303 yards passing, 4 touchdowns, and 2 interceptions. He's also rushed the ball 22 times for 100 yards and 2 more scores. This week's going to be interesting for Johnny Stanton. I'm really interested to hear how things turn out for him this week. With the game out in UCLA for Nebraska, a lot of fans from Nebraska are going out a couple days early to catch Johnny Stanton in a high school game. And I know he's looking forward to it, too. I talked to him this weekend, and he said that he's definitely interested to hear what happens. He knows that there's a couple people at Brophy Prep the first week that were there that were wearing Nebraska gear that shown up to watch him.
We know with Nebraska going out early, excuse me, Bryan Munson of Big Red Report Magazine and BigRedReport.com, the coaching staff will have a chance to look at Johnny Stanton. You mentioned the Husker fans that will be watching him as well. Is there anybody else on his team or in that area that Nebraska is really going after as well and looking at film on?
After watching them against Brophy Prep, I think that Nebraska needs to take a look at that big offensive lineman that's not committed anywhere. You wish that Nebraska still had a chance to go back and talk to the safety, even though Nebraska does have a couple safety prospects. Now, when I did talk to Bo Salem on Sunday, he did say that the Nebraska coaching staff was going to be by his school as well. And, of course, Terrell Newby is going to be out there in California. He's going to be attending the game, as well as Stanton, to go out there and check out Nebraska when they're playing out there against UCLA. I think Newby, Sandlin, I wouldn't be surprised if you hear some kind of report out of Quisenberry that he sees Nebraska, maybe not in the days leading up to the game, maybe a day or two after. But I think that those are some guys right there that Nebraska fans need to be prepared. We'll have some stories out about, and we should have some contact with Nebraska coaching staff over the next week or so.
Bryan, appreciate your time and dedication as always.
You betcha, guys. Thank you so much for having me. I'll talk to you later this week.
All right. Bryan, read his stuff, Bryan Munson, BigRedReport.com.